Welcome to Coast Creatives, a podcast for and about working professional artists within the entertainment industry. I'm Torrin Cavens Flores, and along with my co-host Joe Funk, we interview actors, directors, photographers, writers, and many, many more. Today, we'll be talking with actor and acting teacher Warren Levi Haney. Warren is a classically trained actor who believes that command of heightened language and hypertext analysis are two of many ingredients that make for a better actor. Of course, we geek out about acting, but we also discuss his upcoming class, Making a Master Actor, that takes these principles and applies them to the heightened language of Shakespearean text to create higher caliber performers of modern acting. Let's get into it with Warren Levi Haney. Mr. Warren Levi Haney, how are you today?
My friend, I'm doing well. Doing very well. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
Fantastic.
Those are the words I wanted to hear from you guys.
Fantastic? I said pretty good. I'm fantastic.
Okay, there you go. No, there's a list. There's a list of words that you could use.
All right.
That's on the list.
Good. All right. So you gave us like a little sheet of questions that you wanted to go over, and as Joe was saying before we started recording, holy cow.
It's a great list.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and at the top here, it says classically trained American actor, well-versed in Shakespeare, musicals, and all things theater. And that is what we're going to be talking about today.
We're going to talk about it. Let's go and talk about it. And again, thanks for having me on too, guys. It's really cool to be able to do this and also talk about in this capacity. I know Joe and I were, just from the first time we talked, we were like talking for over an hour.
Yeah, we had a Zoom consultation for headshots, and I think it was probably a little over 90 minutes where we were chatting. We talked about headshots for 20 of those minutes.
We got it out of the way.
We were talking about theater and film, and it was fantastic. And then same with the headshot shoot too. I'm sure it was a few hours while we were shooting together.
It's good this guy's good on time management, because we would be going a lot longer, but then it was literally during these conversations, both of them, where he was just like, oh, you and Torrin you guys are gonna be talking forever.
Yeah, no, we're lucky that Joe is here to keep us on track.
Keep us on track. I'm watching these levels like a hawk. I got my job today. I'm gonna have a lot of fun. Let's dive right on into it. Let's start at the top. Number one for you. So this big bullet point that you want to talk about Shakespeare. We have not had anybody talk about Shakespeare. We also haven't had anybody specifically talk about theater. Honestly, It's been a lot of film. So let's talk about your history with Shakespeare. Let's start there.
You got it. So my journey with Shakespeare actually started when I was in high school, as I'm sure a lot of people had, right? And I had the great fortune to have had a really amazing theater teacher. That his name is Paul Archibek, and even when I go back to Idaho, where I'm originally from, we always get together and we talk and catch up. It's really been one of the best relationships I've been able to have throughout my life. I'm very grateful for. But that was when it kind of started, right? To experience this guy that we know as Shakespeare, and what Shakespeare really did for me. I mean, I knew I wanted to be an actor when I was very young, thankfully. That's cool when you're able to have that. But growing up then with Shakespeare, I fell immediately in love with it. The reason being is because it's like you are working with some of the most crazy worlds that you get to play. You're working with some of the most beautiful words that you get to speak. And one of the things that we'll go into a little bit more is that you are also a part of a long line of other actors that have gone up and spoken those words. And I think that is going to be something that is really important for us to, as we move forward, to continue, not only where we are going in the future, but where we come from as well. And I think of it as our acting ancestry, right? If you identify as an actor, if you identify as someone, this is my life, congratulations, you are now a part of this whole line of human beings. So Shakespeare really kind of opened that door for me. And then, I mean, as an actor, what we always love to do, we love being able to play these dynamic characters, like going multiple levels in our journeys. And wow, even Shakespeare's smallest characters go through those journeys, and you get to play a part in that. And that kind of fueled it a lot. And then, of course, I went to college, got my training over there, and went to a college, Cornish College of the Arts, and had some amazing training over there too, as well as Shakespeare came along with that too. I taught with a woman named Amy Thone, who, when I got to see her perform Shakespeare, I was like, oh my God, she's speaking regular English to me, right? Which is always the hurdle with it, right? You're getting heightened text, and heightened text is specifically made to be that, right? It's not everyday normal language. It's literally constructed in verse. It's constructed with a rhythm. And even people back in Shakespeare's day, like the groundlings that came to the theaters, things like that, none of them also spoke like that. That's one of the big misconceptions. It's like, oh, everybody spoke in heightened text all the time and spoke in pentameter. No.
Yeah, no.
They actually are more illiterate than us. And so it was on Shakespeare's part to say, like, this is what I'm giving you. You as actors need to work to bring that to life and lift it from the page into human experience and make people get it. There's one dramaturg, a Shakespeare dramaturg, that says, and I love this idea, that actors need to know 100% of Shakespeare so that the audience can get the 70. And that in itself is such great goals to be able to strive for in our craft as actors. So as far as like constantly being a challenge, as far as constantly making me learn new things within my craft, that is now then branched out to all other forms of my acting career, I'm indebted to this guy, and it's so fun too. So that's kind of one of the reasons why it was like, well, Shakespeare's always been a part of my life, and I think that there is a need here in Atlanta to have that conversation and to have that training, right? Because here we are in this world, we were talking about it a little bit before, where we have all these acting techniques. We were teaching this one course at Greenlight called Actors Lab, where it's an 18-week course where we're going through all these major acting techniques, starting from Stanislavski all the way up to Chubbuck, Werner Laughlin, practical aesthetics, right? And these people have been making master actors for 100 years. Shakespeare's been making master actors for over 400. So there's something to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that quote that you just gave of knowing 100% so the audience can get 70. And I remember just going through Hamlet when I was younger and looking up everything line by line, even if I was pretty sure what was going on, looking it up anyway, just to make sure. And as a young person doing that, you find out that sometimes "and" means "but,"
right.
Stuff like that. And knowing 100% so the audience can get 70, it's one of the things we're going to talk about. The style of American acting that is more naturalistic. Mm-hmm. It's, yes, heightened text, working with Shakespeare. I love the idea that they can be meshed together, not bastardizing the Shakespearean text or anything like that, but to offer more of an understanding to a modern audience.
To improve upon.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I believe if we bring some of that, naturalistic sort of acting into Shakespeare, it can actually help with the understanding that our audience has.
You're exactly right. And one of the beautiful things about American acting training and techniques is that we have accessed this level of deep, raw emotion and wells and how to create a certain level of unpredictability within our performances as American actors, which is great. However, in my mind, and what I've always seen throughout my career, from not just even in the acting world, from a producing perspective, writing perspective, boundaries create freedom. Total freedom is crippling, right? If you're just living in space, all right, the whole space is there for you. Where do you want to go? Where could you go? You can go literally anywhere. You start thinking all these different ways, and there's no idea around it. There's no construct around it. So what Shakespeare is able to do for us as American actors is create the content for us, the structure for us to then play upon, right? To fill it.
Yeah. And speaking of unpredictability and freedom that you just brought up, what I believe is the main factor that can heighten understanding for Shakespeare, for us and an audience, is the truth that we've happened upon within American acting. Truth and honesty. Not unpredictability, but the truth and honesty. And bringing truth and honesty to the heightened text is tough. How do I say this in a truthful, honest, naturalistic way?
Right. I mean, and that takes a lot of breaking of habits is a huge portion of it. A lot of times American actors, and this is one of the things that I also love about what we're going to be teaching, is that, especially here in the film world, and especially here in the film world of Atlanta, we're very much encouraged to play within our type, right? We're very much encouraged to do that, which is great. Listen, get that booked work. But if we want to consider ourselves as artists and we want to expand ourselves, broaden ourselves, learn how to transform, which is the true nature of what we do as performing artists, is tell stories and create worlds by becoming other people. The best way to do that is by breaking the habits that we don't even realize that we have ourselves. And a lot of the times with scripts that we get nowadays, especially where we're in Atlanta, where when we're in a non-striked world, there's all this work coming our way. There's all this opportunity and all these scripts that a lot of times are just cranked out, right? Scripts are just cranked out to tell a story, and we're not even gonna, we might even change it on the day, right? So we can fall back into second nature. Oh, this is just how I talk. This is just how I do things. Whereas what you do with Shakespeare is you take the text, you do what you were saying, right? You're breaking down word by word, understanding how it is done. You understand, learning about verse, pentameter, the rhythm that goes along with it. And you learn how to explore and paint with your words. Understanding that words are poetry, words are powerful, right? So that then awakens you, and you're able to look at then every script as poetry. And if this script isn't serving that story with its words, how is it when you do make up some words on the day when that allows for it to come up with something that rises out of you and is able to be expressed concisely that aids the story? That's one of the things that Shakespeare teaches as well.
Yeah, and just the technical aspect of going line by line, word by word, oftentimes, it just creates a discipline for analyzing any script.
It's so needed. It's so necessary. I mean, the amount of actors that we can get told that we're like, oh, just, memorize it. That's all you need to do. Go in on the day, be free, we're always told that, but the real freedom comes with, what does this story require of me? When you get that part and this journey, you study it, once you learn to be a detective in your craft, every script becomes so much more fun too. I know that this character within the plot, the arc goes like this. All right, it goes up a little bit here and then it goes down, and then, now I need to go all the way up here in order to make my scene partner then, she has to then break everything and escape the world, right? We're like Doll's House or something like that. And all right, I need to get to these points. Good. Now, how I get to these points is all up to me. Once I know all these specifics of it, but you build your parameters, you're building your playhouse, and then you're able to just fully live in it. That's what we should be doing as actors. And in my personal opinion, it's helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
What is the best way for an actor who has never experienced Shakespeare before, who's possibly intimidated by it? What's the best way that they can find entry into this world?
Music. What we're talking about, heightened text, what we're talking about is verse, right? And it's literally poetry, verse. You can put music to it. It's so fluid. It's flowing. And we know rhythm when we listen to songs, whatever genre it may be. But we all know those songs that speak to us, right? and that we have in our playlists. I mean, I was jamming on it on the way over here. Some of my like playlists, I'm like, man, this song makes me feel good. These words speak to me. And now I feel charged up by these words and this melody and everything like that. That is Shakespeare. That right there is what Shakespeare accesses, just before a time when you were able to have live bands. I mean, they even did have live bands up on that stage too at that time. So within my course structure that I'll be doing, that will be kind of our first introduction. This course is actually made for people to get the building blocks of Shakespeare, to be able to then level ourselves out, to be able to practice Shakespeare. And that's one of the things I love about it, because you got to really attack it from the bottom up. I'm not an educator where it's like, all right, here's the thing. This is what you got to do to go do that. And then now we're moving on. If you catch up, you know what I mean? It's like, here are all the tools. This is how you use the tool. This is how you break it down, the tool, right? And examine it, look at it, see how it works, fits in your body, fits in your voice. And then we're able to, now let's put that to given circumstances. Now let's put that to a scene. Let's put that to a setting. I had a workshop last month with some actors where I was just kind of doing a heightened text workshop to kind of just prepare for this and to get the word out about it. And it's amazing how some of these actors didn't touch Shakespeare at all in their lives. And then when we got down to just, we were doing sonnets, right? Some of his best works is through his actual poems, and putting given circumstances in there. Immediately, just within that one class where I just showed you how to break it down, here's how to do it, and they weren't even memorized, but then that well of emotion just came out. They were like, I had to how to do the exit strategy just because they were feeling so much of it. It's because once you learn how to access those words, you will be amazed by how much they will just work for you. It's incredible, truly.
Yeah.
I like what you wrote here about the importance of working on masterpieces so you can approach everything else masterfully.
Yes.
Wonderfully put.
Well, thank you.
Delve into that a little bit for us.
Of course. In this world, and as a actor here in Atlanta, I've been in Atlanta for a little bit less than 3 years now, right? So what I have seen here too is just from my experience of being here fairly new, but still involved, say pretty regularly in the community. And what I see a lot is we get a lot of those commercial auditions. We get a lot of those co-star auditions, one-liners that we go on for day player roles. Great stuff to be able to do. And again, go and book those roles. However, if we are just doing those, right? If we're just relying on doing, here's your coffee, sir, right? And not stretching ourselves to do this. And again, this is talking to actors that believe that they identify as actors, that they seek to play the more dynamic, challenging roles, the roles that excite us, the roles that can be something that we can really go there and transform and tell a story. We must practice with those scripts, because one day, what if you get handed that script? If you get handed that script and you've been doing 2 years of here's your coffee, sirs, can you really be able to bring that? Can you do that masterpiece justice? Because that masterpiece, as we all know, is within our line of work, there's a lot that you have to give in order to give to that story, right? That's our responsibility, is to keep our instrument well tuned. So the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to work with masterpieces, and not just work with any masterpieces that have lived through centuries, masterpieces that have been translated into hundreds of languages across the world, masterpieces that, and what I define as a masterpiece is a story that is so spot on with the human condition that it lives far beyond itself, right? That we all still learn from it today, which is what we do with Shakespeare. So these are stories that we are able to play a part in. And again, like where we come from before all these other masters that came from it. Now here you are playing your part in it. It's both incredibly humbling and incredibly confidence building at the same time, because you do belong there. You do belong to speak these words, right?
Yeah.
So,
What are some examples of these masterpieces?
there's some really great ones. As far as Shakespeare plays go, his sonnets are really amazing. Twelfth Night is one of my favorite comedies of his. And the reason being, I mean, there's so many stories within just that one play alone, where it's an immigrant story, it's a gender story, right? It's a class story, all wrapped in this love story. And you're able to just have so much fun with it. There are clowns involved. There are the ingenues. There are the villains that are attached to their old ways that are trying to then take advantage of others. You're having all these within this one line. And the first line of it, I still remember from playing it, is, if music be the food of love, play on, right? It's that, just opening that line in that play in itself is so awe-inspiring. Julius Caesar is another great one, right? I mean, Julius Caesar, I mean, we all remember when, like, I think it was like 2016, and it was like Trump just got in and everybody was doing Julius Caesar as like Donald Trump, right? But that is in reaction to, here's how we're trying to tell stories through these old words again, right? There are things that come up, repeated metaphors that always exist within the human condition that Shakespeare is always able to tap into.
Yeah, and working through these masterpieces, you want to be great, you gotta prep. Mm-hmm. It's almost like dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Simple.
And especially in this time right now with, the strikes, as teachers ourselves, we can say just how important it is to put the work in now, prep now, take your career into your own hands, because even though there's a strike, it is still your career and it is still ongoing. Right. It's not on pause. And you and I have both seen class sizes drop, and it's unfortunate.
It is. It truly is. I mean, and there's a level that I totally understand of, oh man, how deflating is it, right? Everything's on pause. I'm not getting as many auditions as I am used to getting. I'm used to getting like 3 auditions a week. Now I'm getting once every 2 weeks. And to any actor, that can be and any creative artist, and like crew members and everything like that too, it can be a very depressing time. But here's the thing that gets me, and it's kind of like a level of stoicism too. It's like, we can feel that for a minute, but it's up to us to choose what we do with it, right? What is the opportunity that's here for me right now, right? Okay, I don't have to stress out about so many auditions coming through. Well, I have a little bit more time. I am interested in learning and growing. Heck, maybe I'm even interested in just making stuff, right? This is the time to be able to grow and make things with your friends. And that's one of the other things I love about Atlanta too, is that this community here in Atlanta is full of people. It's all like production over here, right? And I mean, just from so many conversations that I've had, there are people that are multi-hyphenate, that are actors, writers, grips, gaffers, producers, like literally, we photographers, everything, right? Steadicam operators, but I also, act. I also do this show. There is so much opportunity for us to play different parts and learn different things. And I don't know, make shows. Why not make your own short film during this time? If you find someone with a camera, find someone with a microphone, you can just go and make something.
Yeah.
And it could be great. You can get that into some shorts. You can get into some festivals. You get to meet new people, get to connect with more people, get to share in the community that we have, and not rely on bigwigs up the ladder to dictate when it's time for us to create. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Shakespeare, and that's also the thing, Shakespeare was along that track too. There's a legend that goes like when they were the Lord Chamberlain's men, which was basically like during that time, acting troops were sponsored by different aristocrats and things like that. And at the beginning of their career, they were the Lord Chamberlain's men, and they were on this land where they had their theater built, and it was coming up on the lease, and for some reason the landlord didn't want to renew the lease with them. And then he's like, by the end of this lease, everything that's on this land I'm keeping, right? And that acting troupe, the legend goes that they, board by board, took it down within one night and rebuilt the Globe Theater across the town. Of course, it was probably more like over a month or so, but like that's the dedication that we're talking about. These storytellers were so adamant about telling these stories. They went and found another place, went and did the work, put the nails in, did the blood, sweat, and tears to be able to build that theater again, and then created the New Globe Theater, right? And then which birthed more plays of his that we're still experiencing. So that's what we get to do too. All right, here's this giant obstacle coming our way. Okay, how do I play around it? How do I move with this? How do I think and create, and maybe something that's even outside of the box that like what I'm usually used to? This is our time to explore. So that's, I'm hoping also is what we can start learning. I hope that we are now getting out of the depression phase and now getting to like, well, here I am being depressed for so long. Maybe I should do something phase, which I'm hopeful for, because this strike isn't ending anytime soon, in my opinion.
Personally, how have you been pivoting or bringing new creative endeavors into your life?
I love that you asked that. I'm producing my first short film. So first time as a producer, I produced theater back in Seattle. I ran a nonprofit theater company called the Core Ensemble, founded and ran that for about 4.5 years with a group of collective friends. And now this is my first time producing a short film, doing that one. Really great script. I met these people on a film set that I did my first feature film back in Florida with. Turned out we all lived over here in Atlanta. It was like, oh, how about we just make something? Everyone's like, yeah, I got a camera, I got a microphone, I got this. Okay, sweet. Let's all get together and do it. So we're doing that. Another thing, like talking about Greenlight, the studio that I'm with, this is truly an insane story, and I love everything that's kind of gone into it. We're now producing a web series over there. And it literally was birthed out of, okay, the strike is going on. It's a lot of us that were in our advanced acting class over there at Greenlight. And we were like, well, this is all going on. We are about to be done with acting class for the summer break. What do we want to do? And it was like, oh, let's do a web series. And then it was like, it's kind of like, okay, we can do a small little web series and write a little funny thing. And it's a cute little story about like a small town theater that's trying to do Streetcar Named Desire, but they forget to get the rights to Streetcar Named Desire. And I'll let it go from there. But it then morphed. Now we're shooting 6 episodes across the months. We now have a crew of 25 people. Like we have
wow
gaffers, Steadicam operators, DPs, script supervisors. We have literally all these people just because we came together, wrote some scripts, had a vision, and then we were like, hey, we know some people, let's just ask around. And literally we're all doing it for the love of it. We're all doing it for the love of it.
Yeah, I say this a lot. I found a lot of those people here in Atlanta as well. There's a lot of people that are just in love with being storytellers and will hop on projects.
Right.
If they read a script or you don't have it in the budget to pay them, they say, you know what, I actually just want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this community. So I'm going to jump in. And you're right. Now is a great time to birth those projects. Is it edited, or are these episodes out anywhere? We're
shooting the last 2 weekends of September, the first 3 episodes. So we'll be shooting those as September 30th, and I think it's the 22nd, 22nd and 23rd we're shooting. And it's such a goofy little play, man. It's one of the bits that are within it is like the main setup is that this old woman dies, aristocrat, rich woman in a small town. She dies and is passing along their inheritance to her daughter. But in order for her daughter to get the inheritance, she is required to produce A Streetcar Named Desire in the small town because it was one of her favorite plays growing up. So she has her arch nemesis friend from school who runs the theater in town. It's like a family theater. They unite to then produce this play. And there's just one of the tropes that we're giving the older woman, the woman that died, played by a woman named Rebecca Kuhn, who's an amazing, one of the best actors I've ever met in my life. And she is very promiscuous with young men, and she's like kind of known for that. Like she's doing her video Will, and there's like a sexy dude shirtless in the back, and she's like, Harrison, get back there, Harrison. And during one of the episodes that we're shooting is like a celebration of life episode. And so one of the bits that we're doing is a lot of servers going around and Memorial condom. Memorial condom. It has her face on it. In loving memory. It's like, this is the kind of stuff that like we just kind of got in a room and we were just like, what would be funny? What would we want? Like, what's the story we want to tell? And then these just like things, as soon as one of us said that, everybody burst out and like laughter and we're like, okay, that's going in. Right. So that's what you get to do is just in this community, branch out, ask around. There's no harm in asking to see if someone's available. There's no harm in saying like, hey, I got this going on. We need somebody to do this. If you can't do it, do you know somebody else that can do it? You know, that's looking to train, looking to grow, looking to do these things. And now here we are making something that I think is going to be really good quality, you know? So I'm so grateful for this community. And that's also goes to Greenlight too. I mean, the community over there is full of people that we just want to make the work happen, you know?
Let's talk a little bit about, I'm just going to throw this at you too and see what you do with it.
Throw it at me.
Acting techniques.
Yeah.
Is it important to be well-versed in many different techniques? Is it better to specialize in one? What has been your experience? You're both acting coaches, so I'm just going to throw that in the middle and see what you guys make of it.
All right. Torrin.
He threw it in the middle. Let's feast.
Yeah, let's feast. And let's pounce upon the topic at hand. So for myself, I think that for you, it might be slightly different. But for me, I was kind of more of the former of what you were talking about. My training has been a real amalgamation of many techniques all at once. My schooling was, I had people that were developing their own acting techniques. I had people that were teaching Shakespeare. I learned Meisner for a long period of time. We did Meisner in Greek theater, by the way, like Greek tragedies with Meisner. That was wild. And all these, I learned other techniques too, like that are a little bit lesser known, like Actor in the Target, learning Suzuki method and Le Bon, you know, kind of like more physical theater acting techniques, Lecoq. So I had a real hodgepodge of it, and I'm really grateful for that because it's really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, actors should learn the techniques that inspire them and then use those techniques to develop their own, right? It's not like, oh, now I am this I'm this method actor, or I'm this Meisner actor, or I'm this Adler actor, I'm this whatever actor, and that's where I'm done. You never stop. Always keep expanding, right? So
Yeah, no, I am there with you. I'm a big believer in the tool belt and building your tool belt. I teach Meisner now, but I also majored in this in college. I went to the National Theater Conservatory and learned, you know, a lot of other techniques as well. Meisner is very accessible for people, so I think it is useful.
Yep.
But yeah, there's nothing wrong with learning multiple techniques. My thing about that is learn it.
Learn it.
Don't take like one course and then move on to something else and say that you know Meisner or you know the method, because you don't.
Yeah.
It takes a while to learn a technique. Learn the technique. Learn it well. Put that tool in your belt. If you want to move on to something else, go for it. Learn that technique well. Put it in your tool belt, because no script is the same. There are some scripts where, and I've experienced this, where you read it and you're like, I get it. I don't need to do really much work on this. I get it. I just get it in my body, in my mind. I understand this. And then there are scripts where you do not. And that's fine too. But when you don't, you pull out your tool belt and you take what you need from these techniques that you've learned, you know? And you mentioned knowing the rules so you can break them. But you have to know the rules well.
Know them well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's lost, and I think it's lost touch a bit here. And it makes sense.
It's lost touch everywhere there's acting, in my opinion. It's just, you know, there's people who, I've taken, a short amount of this or that, so I can teach it now. And the landscape gets muddied.
It's vast and full of potholes and misinformation and vipers that want to take your money.
Yeah.
That's the simple damn truth about the matter. And it's a shame, but I mean, that's also, we've learned this from Hollywood within the, since it was first created as a Hollywood mecca, it has then also been a place for many young hopefuls to go and feed the machine and feed the monster.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not just unique to LA. It's unique to, it's a phenomenon all throughout the film world, because there are always going to be people that like have the dream and then they can get led astray or whatever, however their journey goes. But you're exactly right, though, that what won't leave you is true commitment to craft. And what won't lead you astray is working with coaches that tell you, this is how I'm teaching this. This is my experience in teaching this. I'm coming at it from this way. If this works with you, great. Now that you've learned this, now that you've tried this fully, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. Maybe here's some other people for you to try too, right? Because that's how we operate. Like, Greenlight, it's mainly like a Warner Laughlin house, right? Erin Bethea, the owner of the company, one of the most amazing women I've ever met in my life. She is trained with Warren Laughlin and has worked with her for many years. And so she now teaches that technique over at Greenlight, right? There's also, we have Michael Conti, who's also, he's like a graduate of the Groundlings, right? So he's a big improv and sketch comedy kind of world within his belt. And when we're teaching these techniques, it's a matter of like, listen, this is the technique in its entirety. Showing you how the whole thing, right? And unpacking this for you. What connects for me may not connect for you, right? And if Laughlin doesn't work for you in this regard as of right now, or maybe this is a toolbox you're like, okay, great, but I don't feel like it's totally there, go over here instead. They're teaching a Meisner course over here. We'll go over here. There's an Adler course happening right over here. That knowledge is free for us to use because this is our careers. We need to absorb what we need to absorb. And we are the best ones to know of that, right?
Yeah. There's a quote, talent is like water. It's worthless without a vessel to contain it. And I believe the vessel is technique.
Yes.
And I don't want people to misunderstand that, you can't take the technique and mold it to what you need. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that it's important to have something if you need it. Like I said, you can read some scripts and you just get it. You don't really need a technique. You just understand it. But you will, at some point down the road, need a technique to fall back on.
Right. Well, I think the goal of an acting technique is to, on the day, go out and perform what you need to perform with clarity, with freedom of expression, and with dynamism. That's the ultimate goal, is to tell a story.
Yeah.
Are you doing it or not?
Yeah.
And sometimes we do have the scripts that are like, oh, this is just me. Great. Love that. But then, you also have those scripts where you're like, I really need to do some work to craft this character some more. After I've dived into this character, I need to really do some work over here. And that's the beauty of it, because Meisner is so impulse-driven. Meisner is so present moment, reaction-driven. And that's great to use as one essence of it. And then, even though I may not agree with like Strasbergian method technique, there is that idea of, creating this backstory, creating this understanding of this character that I need to come in with in order to really sink in those given circumstances with. Those are two other parts of the whole. Sure, they stemmed from the same guy of Stanislavski, which also it's kind of wild that he talked about all of those things, right? They all kind of got Stanislavski at different points.
Yeah.
Which is nuts to me, right? Like Strasberg only got the first part of Stanislavski's magnum opus of how to do acting technique, right? He just got book 1, right? Stella Adler came in after being like, Strasberg, I don't like this guy, and rejected that, and then went to meet Stanislavski herself and then developed her technique through him. And all these different ways on how to connect with this whole thing. It's truly on you to be able to figure out what works best for you and how do you do the job.
Yeah, and I think the disconnect comes from this stigma of like, oh, technique, so stringent. I have to use the technique for everything. And it's not true. I think it's better if you think of it as a tool belt. You're not going to use every single tool in your belt or every single tool in your garage to build every structure, right? Sometimes you just need duct tape.
That's all it takes. Simple.
But sometimes you need drills, hammers, 2x4s, nails. I mean, yeah.
There are the times that you need the duct tape, but when it comes around time that you need that saw, and you don't have that saw.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of actors are intimidated when they hear about techniques because they very often put it into film acting and theater acting, and these are two different worlds. And a lot of these techniques come from the background of theater, and they say, no, I want to be in movies. I want to do realistic acting. Which techniques have you utilized as a film actor? What helps you within that world? I want to reach out to these people and say, no, this is still applicable to what you're doing. What specifically have both of you reached upon in your tool belt for film acting, for screen acting?
Give an example right now. First of all, Meisner was created as a theater acting technique at the time, right? I use Meisner many a times. When I am working with actors and doing different takes, let them make me feel something different. That is one essence of using that technique. There was another technique. It's so funny. At college, I had a clown professor, right? Which is one of the most delightful things to be able to say. We did this scene for this feature film that I filmed called Love versus the Red Pill. It's actually going to be coming out next month, I believe. And it's my first lead in a feature film, which is exciting. But we had this one moment it's the final scene, and we had a whole fight scene planned. Like, my character would come in and he's going to go and propose to his girlfriend, but his family, or her entire family, hates him. And so he basically comes with his group and they mess up the barbecue, and there's a whole fight that happens and everything, right? And we were rehearsing these scenes for about a week and a half of these fight scenes. And then on the day, 3 of the guys don't show up to do the fight. And we're like, oh, okay, we have to adapt now. We have to adapt a bit. And then the director was like, okay, so here's how it is now. You are going to show up. They're going to do that. Now there's going to be fighting all around you. You're just going to be there. And then you're just going to be watching it all happen and being like, whoa. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I was like, I want you to fight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We all want to be able to do those action scenes. But I was like, okay, well, I got to readjust, right? I had to fall back on some other techniques too of like, honestly, Warren Levi does a lot of this where it's like, okay, now I need to change your story, change the given circumstances a bit. Instead of raring and ready to go for a fight, now I'm just going to go back into it, and I am making the show that I'm ready to go for a fight, but not really. Like, don't punch me,
Yeah.
It's a small, minute difference, but you have to go in that regard. And then he was also like, oh, by the way, we can only do this in one take because the ground's muddy. So you good luck. And I was like, dope. And so we begin, and action is called. We're going and continuing with the choreography that we lightly ran through. And the guy points at me, and then this guy, he goes into a flying arm bar, lands him on the ground. There's people flying, and I'm backing up, getting ready for the second part of the fight. And the first guy that got armbarred and everything. He fell differently than how he fell through the light run through. And so I trip on him. I fall backwards fully, like there's no stopping my fall at all within this. And I fall back, I land, immediately roll up. As soon as I roll up is when the last two guys slam the other two guys down. And there's just this moment of freezing. And I just kind of was like, I'm okay. All right. And I can just continue on.
Yeah.
The comedy was got. We discovered a new joke, a new bit to be able to play.
Yeah.
We watched it back and we were like, oh my God, we got it. It was better than what we ever could have planned originally with this silly fight scene that we were going to do.
Yeah.
Right? This was something that was more genuine, that was more true to what this story needed.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have a technique to fall back on. No pun intended. Pun was very much intended. But that is one essence in my career as a film actor, where if I didn't have a quote unquote theater technique, I would have fallen over. I would not have gotten up. The shot would have been ruined. And I would have had a muddy shirt for nothing, right? I would have had mud on my back for the rest of the day for nothing. And you have to learn these things. You have to learn how to be able to, on the day, show up and be able to play.
Yeah. Go with
That's
it.
a great example. Thank you.
It was so fun. Yeah.
Can we jump now into Greenlight Acting Studios? Because you've mentioned them a couple of times.
Yeah.
What is Greenlight? How did you get associated with them? And let's also start diving into the class you have coming up.
Yeah. Gosh, I love Greenlight. Truly and honestly, I've worked with many other groups of people, many other theater makers, and I'm happy to say that I made the delightful discovery of my community over at Greenlight. And that it literally made me move from Decatur over to Kennesaw, which I never thought I would do. You know, when I first moved over here to Atlanta, I was like, I learned I'm ITP, baby. I'm in the perimeter always. I'm in it, you know? So what was going on was I was in the midst of my second year here in Atlanta, and things were going all right. You know, I was just kind of like auditioning for things. I did a couple of short films and a commercial or two, like low quality commercials or whatever. And I was working in a job that I was dying at. I was working as a marketer and doing copywriting, and God bless the company that was there. They're great people, but I just found that like, oh man, this is stealing all my joy. And of course, it's when those moments when you're feeling the most down in our careers is when sometimes the most beautiful opportunities come up. And it was literally my friend Anna. She was like, hey, here's this audition for August Osage County. Great play, right? Another masterpiece play in the modern era. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I'll audition for that. I sent in a self-tape. They called me back. And this is also a really funny story. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but I almost didn't make the audition because in the submission notes, it didn't have the address on there. And so I was like,
Oh, no.
I was like, oh, and I woke up that morning. I was like, well, I guess I'm not going. And then I called up my friend Harriet, and I was like, I just don't know. I guess I'm not. And she's like, hold on. You know, she looked it up. She did the work for me, and I'm grateful for her. But she was just like, here's the address. You go with it. This is the best. Just go and see if that is it. And I was like, okay. And so like, you're right. I'm driving over, and I'm worried I'm going to be late because I'm in the middle of Atlanta traffic. And I show up and have a delightful time with this group. I get cast in the play, and then I slowly discover this group of people that they produced this play. Aaron and Michelle Neal, Aaron Bethea and Michelle Neal were the ones that produced it. They created a new kind of company, Greenlight Acting Live, so that they could be able to then produce their own plays as well as be an acting studio, right? And that experience, I got to meet people that were so in love with the craft of acting. They were so in love with telling great stories. They were so in love with the idea that we can bring stories to people ourselves. You know, I don't need to wait for a studio to call me or a theater to cast me. I don't need to wait for that. I mean, like, I'm always going to be auditioning. I'm always going to be supporting them. That's great. But even if like no one's casting you, cast yourself in something. Let's create your own show. So and have people audition for that. And they created that, and we had an amazing experience. I got to act with some of the most amazing people. Rebecca Kuhn, I've mentioned before, who, you know, you look her up. She was the Waltons and everything like that. Her and Alpha Trevette, and there's some other really great names within there too. But I just got to really play with some great people on that, and I went up to Erin like near the closing of the show, and I was just like, "You're the person I want to learn from. You're the person I want to learn how to do this industry with." She's been in the film industry now 20 years, plus years, and working in a lot of different films, producing her own films, and also being an acting teacher at the studio. And I'm like, this is exactly it. And the way that you go about it is how I want to go about it. I want to be able to lift people up with our art. I want to be able to create stories. But then one of the things that, quick side tangent, like I think artists can sometimes forget is that we're not just here to just tell stories and there we go. We've did our due diligence for our community. Great. We told you a fun story. We are the cultural leaders of our community as artists. We must also learn how to help the community as we see and help lift other people up gradually. All, like they say, like the high tide lifts all sails. That's our mentality over there at Greenlight. And it's okay that we go slow. It's okay that we do that, because if we're getting other people lifted up, if we're involving these small businesses and having them lifted up while being in one of our feature films and like have them on there, great. If we're able to partner with these people to be able to, they produced a Christmas film where we partnered with the Georgia Festival of Trees that were over here, and that they do fundraisers for so many different organizations every year. And we got to give them a platform, right? As well as they given us. That's what art making should be about. And
Yeah.
so that was for me a light switch of like, these are the people I need to be with. And it's wild, man. I mean, since I've been with them, it's been less than a year, but now my career within the first year of me fully going in film to the second year, dramatic difference. I think I've like tripled my productivity as a film actor and a filmmaker, producer, actor, right? Just in the general sense of the word. So they're really dear to my heart. And I think the craft is there. The commitment to craft is there. And I want to be able to shout them from the rooftops. They're amazing, truly.
And what classes have you taught there?
So I taught an audition technique class to start myself off this year. I also taught a couple of workshops too, along with that. This course that's coming up is my biggest course yet.
Yeah, let's dive into it. What's the name of the course?
The name of the course is called Making a Master Actor, right? And the title of that, emphasis on the word making, right? I'm not here, we've talked about this. Acting technique takes time. Learning a craft takes time, right? Being a master takes a lifetime. So this class is giving you the tools and showing you how this framework has made master actors for over 400 years, right? How many amazing film actors that are British film actors, Australian film actors, New Zealand actors that have Shakespeare backgrounds. And they come over and they do amazing feature films over here. Why not us as well?
Yeah.
It blows my mind. Why not us? It's because what they have and what gives them stellar performances from what I see is their command of language, is their ability to express words with a dynamism, with a level of texture that you need to listen and hang on every single word that they're about to say. And then they change it up. And they know how to play with words. the structure is there for them, right? It's been there for many hundreds of years. So that is what I hope to start a movement of here in Atlanta, is a commitment to craft, a commitment to understanding the power of these words, and that when you inhabit these words in your body and you learn how to physically do it, because it's a physical act too. These words demand a lot of you. And so if you learn how to inhabit that and live those words, you will notice a growth within your craft that is like none other. That's my journey, at least.
And you're right that it would take a lifetime to master. How do you organize your class to get to have the most impact over such a short period of time?
Yes. So the class itself is modeled after a lot of the classes that I've taken over the course of my training, right? And I've also taught many classes too, as well. I'm not totally fresh within my education career. I've taught many years over back in Idaho, back in Washington, with Idaho Shakespeare Festival and Seattle Shakespeare Company. And how I'm structuring this is very much a true roadmap into how to break down this text and get to know this text. I mean, what you've talked about earlier of defining every single word, 100% a part of that, right? And then understanding how to break down verse, right? That's going to be another part of it too. The reason why we're starting off with songs at the beginning of my course is because, like I kind of mentioned earlier, songs are what our first entryway into understanding the power of what these words are, what Shakespeare does. Shakespeare speaks in his verse in a rhythm. It's called iambic pentameter, right? And the reason why iambic pentameter, out of all these different pentameters, everybody back in that day were using so many different, dimeters, tetrameters, like they were playing all these different kind of formats in poetry within plays. Why iambic pentameter is amazing is that it's even 10, like 10 beats along, and with a very specific rhythm that we all know. It's our heartbeat. He accesses our heartbeat through the words. And once we learn how to make that heart-word connection, it's powerful. So we start off with songs, and then we go into sonnets, right? Those are one of the biggest, clearest ways to be able to identify iambic pentameter and how to break it down, right? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and contemporate, right? And lovely and more temperate. And once you learn how to break that down, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. We are learning the rhythm bare bones. We learn how to go slow, then to smooth. Then from smoothness, we start learning what that traction, that speed is. We start developing the given circumstances that go within that. So once we get a good handle on sonnets, we'll work those sonnets. And then from there, we'll work scenes. And the scenes that Shakespeare has throughout all of his works, it's amazing because his plays, we know literally so little about this man. We don't really even know how he felt emotionally. The only actual handwritten things of his that are outside of his plays are like legal documents and things of that and so imagine, how much we can gain from your car loan. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't really gain much.
Yeah.
So through his plays, he is Machiavellian. He's loving. He's incredibly dark and passionate. He's all these different crazy extremes of the worlds that he encompasses. And so we get to play within those worlds. So some of the scenes I might give are Julius Caesar, Brutus and Cassius. They're about to be taken over from trying to revolt and change Rome. And now Mark Antony is coming over and they are done. They are screwed. This is their last final moments before they go and get, destroyed basically by these guys. And it's these two brothers that love each other. What is the last words that they say to each other? Powerful. There is a moment in Twelfth Night where Viola and Duke Orsino, they have this amazing moment of love where Duke Orsino doesn't even realize that he loves this person because it's my male servant. I'm not supposed to love this guy. I love this woman over here. But the connection I have with you, the way that we just connect and know each other is so profound. And then, just put that away. put that away. That is so, human, right?
Yeah.
There's so many dealing with politics and class. Henry IV Part 1 is one of my favorite plays, and that is a story of a man who is raised to be king, but he can't measure up to it yet. And he wants to live a life of carefreeness. And I don't want to have this responsibility and then being thrust upon greatness. You must now rise up to this in order to save your country, to save your world. These are just some of the examples. He has 18 other plays. Talk about, this is what we're going to be working. So we'll work those scenes. And one of the things that I think is particularly maybe exciting I've talked about this with a lot of my actor colleagues, because I definitely wanted to make sure that this class is as exciting and inspiring and just like, that acting moment where you're just like, yeah, you're like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm in it. And it's really visceral. It's hard to explain, but maybe Shakespeare could do it. But it's, we're actually going to separate it out where you're going to get one-on-one time with me in these scenes, right? Blocked out. And they're not going to be able to, the rest of the class isn't going to be able to see your final scene for probably a couple weeks until the final show, right? The final performance. You need to learn how to create this world. And not only are you creating this world, I want you to be able to create this world for the people that you have in this class. They're not going to know what you bring. You got to bring it to the table. You need to wow them. You need to take your cohorts, this community of people, which I truly believe if you were signing up for a course, the 12 people that you have with you in that course, they are your cohort. And you have a responsibility to not let them down, because they are going to learn from you, just as you are going to learn from them, just as you're going to learn from me, and I'm going to learn from them too. But on the final day, I want all these actors to be able to come up with something that is theirs, that is their rendition of how this scene is supposed to go, and present that for people so that we can learn a little bit more about how to do this thing we called acting.
Well done. Well said.
For our audience, Joe just gave a little...
That's a golf clap for you.
Air clap.
A little... Thank you.
What I love about this whole conversation is you get a sense from you that being a lifelong learner is very important. Kind of how you just said, and I'm going to learn from them as well. It keeps you fresh. It keeps you sharp. Iron sharpens iron. Being around, even with these students, you're learning so much about yourself. I love that. You pitched it wonderfully. I hope everybody goes and checks out your class. We'll be sure to put information for Greenlight within the footnotes so everyone can go check it out.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm excited for you. Congratulations, man.
Hey, thank you guys. Really, truly, it's an honor to be on this table talking with you guys. It's one of the things I just get to have a great time with. I get to talk about the thing I love, and that's always a gift. So thank you.
You're very passionate about it, and I love that. I love the energy that you're bringing here. And we're gonna end with a question we end every show with. So our question to you is, if you could give advice to a younger version of yourself, maybe just wrapping up college, heading out into the world of professional acting, what piece of advice would you pass along?
In short, so the thing I would say is something that actually has been said to me, is all right if it's a little story that I tell? Okay, great. It's like it was my freshman year of college, and we were doing scenes you couldn't believe. Talk about transformation. We were all doing scenes from Raisin in the Sun, Lorraine Hansberry, and taught by a master professor, Timothy McEwen-Begay, who has worked with the play for decades at this point, right? So if there was anybody to teach this play to people, again, you start off with masterpieces, right? And we were doing this play, and I was coming fresh out of Idaho, being a big fish in a small pond, thinking like, oh man, I know how to do this thing. I'm so good. You know what I mean? And we were rehearsing it, going. And we come up to the final performance, and it was so viscerally bad, so viscerally selfish and full of itself that I was shook, right? I was, oh my God. I didn't serve the play at all. I didn't serve the text at all. And I remember going to his office after and saying, hey, Timothy, can I talk to you? And he's like, yeah, come in. And I start crying, and I'd start breaking down. I'm like, man, what is, I messed that up, and here I am. I thought I was supposed to be doing this. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and now here I am, and I'm here, and like I'm supposed to rise up and do this thing, and I fail so hard, and I just don't know what to do. Am I even supposed to be doing this thing? And I'm coming at him with all these, existential questions, and this is the piece of advice that he gave me and that I would also give to my younger self. Can I tell you something? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, get over yourself. And I'm like crying, tears in my eyes. I'm like, what? That was not what I was expecting to hear. And he's like, is this what you want to do with your life? And I was like, yeah, more than anything in this world. Okay, you're here. Keep learning. Keep growing. This is one moment of your life. If you're going to let this one thing bring you down over this whole thing, you have no right to be out here.
Yeah.
So go out and continue to grow this craft that you love so much and make something with it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful message. And thank you so much for both being here today as well as bringing your passion.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And it's motivational to listen to you talk about this. I'm excited for your class, and you'll have to come back in the future because you sent us a list of things to talk about, and there's a few things on here we didn't even cover that I feel like they could potentially be their own episode.
Truly.
So
Yeah.
You're a friend of the show.
Yes.
Hey, you've done it.
You're welcome back.
That was my goal. Setting up, I was like,
You did it.
We did it. I know when you started like, oh, I guess that's Thunder Rap, but I'm like, we're already here, as we expected to happen. So
Yeah. We're over an hour. You did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being here today. Anything you want to end with, Torn? You all good?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Just like to say that it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure, man.
I
I'm glad that we
enjoyed-
actually got to talk
I
about
know.
so many things. I'm sure we're going to be able to talk about so many more.
Yeah, enjoyed talking acting with you. Yeah, we'll be able to talk about a lot more outside of the podcast. Sorry, audience, but it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen. We just got to, whiskey glass in hand and words and philosophizing as we go.
I can't wait.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Warren. Always wonderful talking to you. And please, everybody, go in the footnotes and check out the show notes and check out everything you have going on because you have a lot. So we got short films, we got web series, we got your class, a lot to check out. So go give them a follow, go check out their stuff, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Oh, thank you, guys. Same to you guys. We're rising together.
Thank you, buddy.